There was a little bit of nerves going up to that, being like, oh, we're gonna have to kiss. We haven't kissed. You know what I mean? Like, we're good friends and now we have to kiss. Ooh. I think it's what I find interesting about it is especially the speed, right? And you kind of see that with the edit too. I think we felt that even before knowing the edit, these moments felt very different, you know? So I mean, it's just, it's about reminding ourselves, even though we had been filming for like a month and a half by the time we started filming those segments, just reminding ourselves who, what, when, where, you know? Like, this is the first time you're doing something like this. This is the first time you're having this person over to your house.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just fun to discover a new side of them too, because up until that point we hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Did your mom buy all these pillows?
No. I hired someone. A designer.
You think there is enough?
Such an asshole.
Also with the structure of shooting, you know, other people get that shift in, you know, linear progression is how it was written. Our show was like kind of unusually block shot. So it was like shot like a giant movie, which means, you know, we're shooting parts of episode 5 in the beginning, parts of, you know, episode 4, you know, early on. So it was all sort of, the shooting was unassembled, and so we had to sort of
Take it moment by moment.
Know every little moment. We're jumping in the same day. We're going from multiple scripts. So I think for us, we didn't really get the benefit of going linearly. You know, we had to hold the entire story and then go in on command to these different points that these characters are at. Yeah.
I think that what really anchors them is not the sex itself, but what's going on in their life outside of that and how that affects the sex. Like for me and Ilya's journey, it was like, okay, so this is this part of the story when this happens with his family, and then this is the part of this where you lose this game, you know, and we see that referencing episode 2, you see that shift after, you know, after the Olympics and then after winning the cup. Like, you see how that affects their dynamic and how that affects the sex for that moment. And then, you know, in turn, how that affects them after the sex like that. So I think it's really about, I think it's kind of the reverse, which is mapping their lives outside of that. And then how do they show up sexually and romantically because of this, this, and this. For Ilya, at least. I don't know if he feels the same for Shane.
Yeah, I felt like the approach was, you know, I always knew where I stood on that sort of debate. I always felt, you know, handled the right way, sex does have a huge place in storytelling. And with this show, we got the benefit of the sex scenes being treated as, you know, deliberately as the conversation scenes, almost more, because we had rehearsal for them. We had conversation about the conversation that's happening within them. And, you know, hopefully this show kind of proves how, you know, if you skip the sex scenes, or you kind of go, oh, this is for the people who just want to see some raunchy like sex or lust, you know, you miss the story.
Come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
Episode 1 is, what is it? I think it's like 29%. I spat all over. 29% like intimate scenes. And, you know, some people could be like, oh, so, you know, that means 71% story, but that's not true. It's most of the story is in that 29%.
I mean, after our first, we had a rehearsal day where for a half day we literally just walked through every intimate scene in the script. And I mean, let's be honest, there was a little bit of nerves going up to that, being like, oh, we're gonna have to kiss. We haven't kissed. You know what I mean? Like, we're good friends and now we have to kiss. But the moment we started doing that, you're kind of like, oh, I can do it. You know, it's kind of like with acting. It's with any part of acting. Honestly, I think I was more nervous for our first speaking scene than I was for our first, you know, intimate scene. Because that's also super vulnerable and you feel really naked, you know, just putting yourself out there and being like, well, this is how this character shows up. You know, this is what the character is, you know? So yeah.
Right. We spoke to that even before we started shooting. I think Connor was telling me how sometimes, you know, when you're acting and someone starts doing a character in front of you, it's hard to take in, and you know, your brain can't quite handle the difference. But I found the sort of departure, the mutual shift of both of us playing things. You know, I would speak about things of Ilya that I related with, that I understood, that you were like, I'm not sure I like this about Ilya, or this feels weird. And then this vice versa with Shane, I would be like, oh, what does this mean? And Connor's like, oh no, this is what I love about Shane. So I think it helped us, you know, there's curiosity that kind of led the ship, which was really nice.
I feel pretty aligned with the fans because we want the same thing. And at this point, it's my job to take that personally.
Ilya?
What he said.
I stayed with my Ilya accent, like whenever we were filming. If we had a filming day, I was in that from the time I showed up to my trailer in the morning until we called cut on the last shot. And I think that helped a little bit, like keep not only us in a space. I mean, our energy would go crazy. We would do something, you know, a very serious or dramatic or whatever, and then 2 seconds later it'd be kind of laughing and clowning around. But yeah, speaking to your point, I have a really hard time acting with people that I'm very close with, that I know, because my brain does this like backflip where I'm like, that's not, like, why are you lying to me right now? For whatever reason, I never had that with Hudson, which I think is a testament to his really good acting, but also I think both of our abilities to like click into these characters and be like, not only do I get where I'm coming from, but I understand why you're doing what you're doing. And it just makes it feel 10 times better.
I think Shane loves control, you know, and like outside of his life, he likes steering the thing. He likes, you know, dominating to a degree in his sport. He likes to do everything to be able to continue to do that in his sport. And I think that's his whole life up to this point. So I think with Ilya, there's an element of control he can give up. And, you know, he's reinforced that he's doing a good job. And I think at the end of the day, Shane loves to do a good job and make people happy and perform. And I think with Ilya, it's both his sexual urges are that of you know, more, it's more submissive, but also it's, for him, that's the joy of how he can perform, you know.
I think that if you take like Shane's character, for example, he is so in control and he is so domineering and so is at the, you know, controlling so many elements of his life, you know, the pressure to be the performer, the hunter, the man, so to, you know, for lack of a better term. And so, yeah, I think sometimes sexually people seek out the opposite of the energy that they want in their real life. It's kind of like, you know, these highfalutin businessmen who, you know, love to be dominated, and you hear them like they have a dominatrix and they want to be treated like a little sissy, you know. And I kind of think, again, it's kind of the same thing with Ilya. I mean, if I look at his emotional journey secularly from our arc and the love story in the show, I mean, he is totally out of control in terms of what he's allowed to be in his country. He is totally out of control in how everything goes down with his mother. He is so out of control with his father. I mean, I've said it. I don't really think that Ilya gives a shit about hockey, and you know, it just so happens to be something he's good at, and so he's thrust into this thing. And what's the opposite of that? You know, is being in control.
What a fucking day, huh?
Yeah, totally.
Is everything you dreamed of?
Almost.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I live in West Hollywood, so I feel like I'm in the body central. I mean, I was telling Hudson, he's visiting obviously for this, and I was like, yeah, I mean, we're in a place where West Hollywood, you know, men's beauty is a huge topic of conversation. I feel really blessed though, because even though there is, you know, a lot of attention on our bodies, I feel like for the most part people are being really nice, you know? I mean, let's be honest, people can be really cruel online, like horrible. And people have been really nice, and not only nice to us, but also protective of us. So I just feel blessed. Honestly, could have gone really bad. People are evil sometimes. and I haven't been experiencing that, so it feels good. Keep it coming, you know.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, both with Jacob, between ourselves, and yeah, I think on the surface it's confusing that possibly like why would straight women like this, but also Jacob has said it. There's so little care into that thought. The fact that this show is going like, what, straight women like this, and both I think I was talking to you about this. I think there's both a chances element or like a statistic element of like in a straight relationship. If you're a straight woman, you don't fancy the gent in the story, or maybe you're not attracted to him. I think in our relationship, if I'm like, or like, oh, the Shane guy's not doing it for me, but that Russian, goddamn,
Right.
or vice versa, there just might be a double chance that there's an attraction there. But also, I think there's an element of possibly women who have maybe a desire to give up control. That is scary, and there's a lot of fear there. There's a fear of violence, and men are big and they're scary. But if they can live vicariously through the Shane character, they know there's inherent safety. There's, and I think that's possible. I'm a little bit
I also think
theorizing, but
yeah, I also think that I was talking to Hannah, our costume designer, and because we were talking about that exact thing. I was like, wow, it's predominantly women from the book, and obviously I think the gay men demographic has gone up because of the show, just because of the visibility, not knowing of the book beforehand. And she was like, well, I think that there's something about this type of story and this type of love and this type of sex that has a lot to do with this almost like prolonged foreplay and yearning, which kind of differs from this more pornographic idea of sex. And she's like, I think that's what the female audiences are really drawn to. And I think she was like, I think it's more so geared towards a feminine gaze.
Right.
Which is super interesting because it's true. I mean, that's why we like romance.
Yeah.
It's not just the sex or whatever. It's the moments in between where you see desire and this pull towards vulnerability and connection.
I would also want to add, like, it made me think, like in a straight hetero normal romance, it's usually you fall into tropes and stereotypes where the woman is the communicator, and the guy's the closed off. That's usually the archetype we see. So I think that it's two men. It's, well, someone has to do the talk. Like, communication needs to happen. So like, which one of you motherfuckers is gonna do it is sort of enticing, because they're like, so men are capable of having communication. They can get somewhere. They're not completely
right.
incompetent.
I saw something online that was really interesting, and she said that it was an influencer or like a book talk personality talking about this, and she was like, the reason why women are so into stories that involve gay men is because they are so exhausted by the idea of straight men that like this is the only way that they get to see a form of masculinity that feels accessible and interesting to them, which I think is a cool point. Because it does turn the normal idea of masculinity on its head in a lot of different ways.